If my daughter had called me 5 minutes later, I might have let my sister marry the man she loved. I might have smiled for the pictures. I might have raised a glass during the reception. I might even have hugged my sister and told her I was happy for her. But at 7:42 on a Saturday morning, my phone rang. It was my daughter, Madison. And the first thing she said wasn't hello. She didn't even say good morning. She whispered, "Mom, you need to see this video." I sat up in bed. Something about her voice made the room feel suddenly cold. I asked her what was wrong. She said, "I can't explain it over the phone. Just promise me you won't let Aunt Claire get married today until you watch this." My sister Claire was supposed to get married at 4 o'clock that afternoon. There were more than 100 guests coming. The flowers had already been delivered. The caterer was preparing the food. The photographer was booked. And my mother had spent months telling everyone that Claire's wedding would be the most beautiful day our family had ever seen. But my daughter had just asked me to stop it. And what she showed me on that video would force me to make the hardest decision I had ever made as a sister. My name is Laura Bennett. I'm 48 years old. I live in Ohio, and until that morning, I honestly believed I knew my family. I believed my sister had finally found happiness. I believed people could change. And I believed that after years of putting my own family first, I had finally earned the right to have a peaceful life. I was wrong. Before I tell you what happened next, if you enjoy emotional family stories with secrets, betrayal, justice, and endings that actually mean something, please consider subscribing to the channel. And stay with me until the end. Because the video wasn't the worst part. The worst part was discovering why my sister needed me to believe a lie. My relationship with my sister had never been simple. Claire was 3 years younger than me. Growing up, she was the beautiful one, the outgoing one, the one who could walk into a room full of strangers and somehow leave with 10 new friends. I was quieter. I liked books. I liked staying home. I wasn't the kind of person who needed everyone to notice me. But Claire always knew how to make people notice her. When we were teenagers, I didn't mind. That's just who she was. The problem started when we became adults. I got married young. My husband, David, and I built a small life together. We weren't rich. We weren't glamorous. But we worked hard. We bought a modest house. We raised our daughter. And whenever Claire needed help, we helped her. She borrowed money. We helped. She needed a place to stay. We opened our home. She needed someone to pick her up from the airport at midnight. I drove 2 hours. When she started her first business and needed money for the deposit, David and I gave her what we could. I never kept score. At least, that's what I told myself. Then David died. That was 6 years ago. And losing him changed me. For the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to wake up in a quiet house and realize the person you expected to see beside you would never come back. Claire was there for me during the funeral. She held my hand. She cried with me. She told me, "Laura, you're my sister. You will never have to face anything alone." I believed her. Maybe that's why what happened later hurt so much. Because sometimes the deepest betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from the people who know exactly where you're vulnerable. About a year after David died, Claire met Michael. Michael Harris was 52. He was charming, confident, well-dressed. He owned a construction company and talked about business like he was born doing it. The first time Claire introduced him to me, she said, "Laura, this is the man who finally understands me." Michael smiled and shook my hand. He seemed nice, but there was something I couldn't put my finger on. Maybe it was the way he looked around my house. Not at me. At the house. At the furniture. At the framed pictures. At the things David had left behind. Still, I said nothing, because Claire was happy. And after everything she'd been through, I wanted her to be happy. Within 8 months, they were engaged. Then came the wedding plans. Claire wanted a big wedding. She wanted everything perfect. A beautiful venue, expensive flowers, a live band, a professional photographer. She told everyone that Michael had given her the life she deserved. I was happy for her, or at least I tried to be. Then, 3 weeks before the wedding, Claire asked me something strange. She said, "Laura, have you ever thought about selling your house?" I laughed. I thought she was joking. I told her absolutely not. This was the house David and I bought together. Our daughter grew up there. Every room had a memory. Claire shrugged. "I'm just saying. Houses like that are worth a lot now." I asked why she cared. She smiled. "I don't. I was just asking." I didn't think about it again. Until my daughter called me that Saturday morning. "Mom," Madison said, "I need you to listen carefully." I could hear traffic in the background. I asked where she was. She said, "I'm at the wedding venue." My heart dropped. "Why are you there?" She took a breath. "I came early because Aunt Claire asked me to help with some things." Then she said something I'll never forget. "Mom, I found a video on Michael's laptop." I immediately felt uncomfortable. I told her she shouldn't be going through people's private things. She said, "I know. I wouldn't have looked if I hadn't seen my name." "What do you mean?" She went silent for a second. Then she said, "My name was in the file." I stood up. "What kind of file?" "Mom, just watch it." She sent me the video. My hands were shaking as I opened it. At first, it looked like ordinary security footage. A parking lot, a building, 2 men talking. Then Michael walked into the frame. I recognized him immediately. But the other man, I knew him too. It was my sister's financial advisor. The video was dated 6 months earlier. Michael was talking. I couldn't hear everything because the recording had no sound. But then the screen changed. Madison had apparently found another file. This one had audio. I pressed play, and I heard Michael say, "Once Claire marries her, the house becomes easier to deal with." I froze. The man beside him asked, "What if Laura refuses?" Michael laughed. "Her daughter will convince her." My stomach turned. Then he said something that made me stop breathing. "Claire knows exactly what to do." I replayed it. Again. And again. Then I heard the part that broke me. Michael said, "She trusts her sister more than anyone. That's why Claire is the one who has to handle it." I sat on the edge of my bed. My hands were numb. The room suddenly felt unfamiliar. I called Madison. "Where did you get this?" She said, "Mom, there's more." Madison sent me another video. This one showed Claire and Michael sitting at a restaurant. They were talking about me, about my house, about my savings, about my late husband's life insurance. And then Claire said, "Laura won't suspect me." Michael replied, "She thinks you're the only family she has left." Claire laughed. Then she said, "That's what makes this so easy." I stopped the video. I couldn't watch anymore. My sister, my little sister, the woman who had held my hand at David's funeral, the woman who promised I would never be alone. She had been planning to take everything I had. But there was one question I couldn't answer. Why? I called Madison. "Send me everything." She did. There were bank records, emails, property documents, messages, and one document that made everything clear. Michael had been planning to refinance my house without my permission. He had already spoken to a lender. He had already prepared paperwork. And somehow he had obtained copies of documents I had never given him. I called an attorney immediately. His name was Daniel Brooks. He had helped David with some business paperwork years ago. When I told him what I had found, he didn't panic. He didn't even sound surprised. He simply said, "Laura, do not confront them yet." I asked why. He said, "Because if they're doing what you think they're doing, you need to know how far they've already gone." That sentence changed everything. I drove to the wedding venue. The parking lot was already filling up. Guests were arriving. Flowers were everywhere. My mother was standing near the entrance, smiling as she talked to relatives. Claire saw me. She walked toward me with a huge smile. "Laura, where have you been?" I stared at her. For a moment, I couldn't speak. She hugged me. And that was the strangest part. I could feel her arms around me while remembering her voice in that video. "Laura won't suspect me." I stepped back. She looked at me. "Are you okay?" I said, "We need to talk." Her smile disappeared. "About what?" I looked at Michael. He was standing about 20 feet away. The second he saw my face, I knew. He knew I had found out. His expression changed for just a second. Then he smiled. That tiny reaction told me everything. Claire grabbed my arm. "Not here." I pulled my arm away. "Actually, Claire, I think this is exactly where we should talk." My mother came over. "What is happening?" I looked at everyone around me. My sister, her fiancé, our mother, our relatives, people who had traveled across states to be there. Then I said, "The wedding is not happening." Nobody moved. Claire stared at me. "What did you just say?" I repeated it. "The wedding is canceled." My mother looked horrified. "Laura, have you lost your mind?" Michael stepped forward. "This is inappropriate." I looked directly at him. "Is it?" Then I pulled out my phone. "I have a video." Claire's face went white. Michael said, "You have no idea what you're talking about." I pressed play. The sound came through the speaker. Michael's voice. "Once Claire marries her, the house becomes easier to deal with." Everyone went silent. Then Claire's voice played. "Laura won't suspect me." My mother covered her mouth. Claire started crying, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt broken, because revenge sounds exciting when you're imagining it. But when the person standing in front of you is your little sister, it doesn't feel exciting. It feels like mourning someone who is still alive. Claire grabbed my hand. "Laura, please." I pulled away. She cried. "It's not what you think." I said, "Then tell me what it is." She couldn't. Michael stepped between us. Someone manipulated that recording. My daughter stepped forward. "No." Everyone looked at her. Madison held up her phone. I found the original files. Michael's face changed. Madison continued. "And I sent copies to Mom's attorney." Michael said, "You have no right." Madison interrupted him. "You talked about my mother like she was a bank account." The room went silent. My daughter was crying now, but she didn't back down. She said, "She trusted you." Then she looked at my sister. "And Aunt Claire, she trusted you too." Claire broke down. She admitted everything. Not all at once. At first, she said Michael had convinced her. Then she said she only wanted financial security. Then she said she never intended to hurt me. But eventually, the truth came out. Michael had debts. A lot of them. His construction company was failing. He owed money to multiple people. He had been looking for assets he could control. And when Claire told him about my house and my savings, he saw an opportunity. He convinced Claire that after they married, she could persuade me to move. Then they could sell my house. They planned to convince me that downsizing would be good for me. If I refused, they planned to use my daughter's emotional relationship with me. They knew Madison was the one person I would listen to. That's why Michael had said, "Her daughter will convince her." They weren't just planning to steal my money. They were planning to use my own daughter against me. The wedding was canceled that day. Guests left confused. Some were angry. Some were embarrassed. Some blamed me. But I didn't care anymore. I went home. I sat in the kitchen where David and I used to drink coffee. Madison sat beside me. For a long time, neither of us said anything. Finally, she said, "Mom, I'm sorry." I looked at her. "Why are you sorry?" She said, "I should have seen it earlier." I hugged her. "No," I told her. "This isn't your fault." She started crying. And I realized something. The whole time I had been thinking about what my sister had taken from me. I had forgotten what she had given me. A daughter who loved me enough to investigate something that didn't feel right. A daughter who risked being hated by her aunt. A daughter who stood in a room full of adults and told the truth. That was worth more than any house. Daniel, my attorney, helped me protect everything. We changed my financial accounts. We placed legal protections around the property. We reported the fraudulent documents. Michael's situation became much worse once investigators looked into his business. There were other people, other debts, other schemes. I never learned everything. Honestly, I didn't want to. Claire eventually left him. She came to my house about 4 months later. I almost didn't answer the door, but I did. She stood there looking completely different. No makeup, no expensive clothes. Just my little sister. She said, "I don't expect you to forgive me." I said nothing. She continued, "I was jealous of you. That surprised me." She said, "You had David. You had a stable life. You had Madison. You had a house full of memories." She looked down, and I kept thinking you had everything I didn't. I told her, "You could have talked to me." She started crying. "I know." I asked, "Why didn't you?" She whispered, "Because I was ashamed." That was the first honest thing she'd said in years. I didn't forgive her that day, and I think that's important. People sometimes believe forgiveness means pretending nothing happened. It doesn't. I told Claire, "I don't hate you." She looked at me, "But I don't trust you." She nodded. "And trust isn't something you can ask for." I told her, "You have to earn it." She agreed. Then she left. For nearly a year, we barely spoke. But slowly, things changed. Claire got a job. She paid back the money she could. She went to counseling. She stopped blaming everyone else. And little by little, she started becoming the person I remembered from childhood. Not perfect, not innocent, but honest. 1 year after the wedding that never happened, she called me. I almost didn't answer. When I did, she said, "Laura." "Yes, I just wanted to tell you something." "What?" "I'm proud of Madison." I smiled. "So am I." Then Claire said, "And I'm proud of you too." I didn't know what to say. She continued, "You didn't destroy me when you had every reason to." I said, "I didn't need to destroy you." There was silence. Then I told her, "You destroyed your own life when you decided my trust was something you could sell." She started crying. But this time, I didn't hang up. 2 years have passed since that morning. My house is still standing. The same kitchen. The same old wooden table. The same framed photograph of David. But I changed one thing. I stopped thinking of my house as the place where I lost my husband. Now I think of it as the place where my daughter saved me. Sometimes Madison comes over on Sundays. We make coffee. We talk. And every once in a while, she'll look at me and say, "Can you believe that all started with one video?" And I'll say, "No, because it wasn't really the video that saved me. It was the fact that my daughter trusted her instincts. She saw something that didn't feel right. And instead of ignoring it, she acted." That's what I remember. Not the wedding. Not Michael. Not the money. Not even my sister's betrayal. I remember my daughter's voice on that phone call. Mom, you need to see this video. And I think about how close I came to believing a lie. Sometimes betrayal doesn't walk into your life looking like an enemy. Sometimes it walks in smiling. It hugs you. It calls you family. It sits at your dinner table. And sometimes the person who saves you isn't a lawyer, isn't a detective, isn't someone powerful. Sometimes it's your daughter calling you before breakfast, telling you to look closer. And if there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's this. Never let someone's relationship to you become proof that they deserve your trust. Trust their actions. Watch what they do when they think nobody is looking. Because people can say, I love you. They can say, I'm your family. They can say, I would never hurt you. But eventually, their actions will tell you the truth. And when that truth finally appears, have the courage to face it, even when it breaks your heart. Especially then, because protecting yourself isn't revenge. Walking away isn't revenge. Setting boundaries isn't revenge. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply refusing to let the people who betrayed you decide what happens to the rest of your life. I didn't destroy my sister. I didn't ruin her future. I didn't take anything from her. I simply stopped her from taking everything from me. And honestly, that was enough.